Welcome to folks as you join here. We're going to give it just a minute or so before we get started. And welcome if you just joined us. We're still letting people join in. We'll get started in about 30 seconds or so. Okay. I think we can go ahead and get started today. Thank you everyone for joining us here on May 12th, 2026. We are going to get started with our coffee session. So like usual, we will be going through a few prepared topics today. And if you have any questions, you can put your questions in the Q&A feature in Zoom. And we will use the chat occasionally to send links and things like that for you all. But as soon as we get through our prepared topics, we'll do our best to get to any questions that we haven't answered yet. Um, as usual, sometimes I forget to introduce myself. If you're new here, what a time to start joining our coffee sessions in the peak of testing season. But if you are new here, my name is Tyler Shakwa. I work for ETS, and my colleagues and some of our colleagues from the California Department of Education are on today to help answer your questions in the background or and also walk us through these prepared topics. So if you would like to download the slides or the resource guide, which is a Word doc that has a bunch of the links and stuff that we'll mention, you can download those from our website, from our upcoming and on-demand trainings page. You can also get there through our link tree, which you can get to by typing in linktr.ee/Cal Outreach into your web browser. Select upcoming and on-demand trainings, the coffee session under May, and download the resource guide and PowerPoint from there. That link is also in the chat, and like I mentioned, you can go straight to our website, caaspp-elpac.org, and navigate normally to our training page. All right, let us look at our agenda for today. A bit of a long agenda. We've got a few reminders and some other stuff to talk through. So we'll talk through training opportunities, some educator involvement opportunities, and new and updated resources like we usually do. And then we'll just cover the upcoming timeline for student scores to be released for summative testing. We'll talk about condition codes, and then some usual topics: test security, stairs, call drivers, and reminders. And then we'll get to any other questions and answers. So let's jump into some training opportunities today. So towards the end of the year here, a lot of results focused trainings. So we'll talk first about there's a series of trainings on CERS, or the California Educator Reporting System. So on May 13th is the first module of that, which is accessing 25-26 summative assessment results in CERS. And that one on May 13th focuses on ELPAC and the CSA, or the California Spanish Assessment. And then if we jump to that bottom bullet, there's a second module of that same series on May 20th that will focus on the ELA, math, and science scores, summative scores in CERS. So there's two there. On May 19th, there's going to be an initial alternate ELPAC AST overview and Q&A. So that is where we discuss the initial alternate training and certification courses on Moodle. So if you have questions about the new admin year of the initial alternate trainings opening up, you can join that on May 19th. So we'll look at the next slide here. So on May 21st, there's a new coordinator training that will focus on prepping initial ELPAC, which is a big task over the summer. So that may be real valuable, especially for new coordinators. On May 27th, there is a charter school assessment coordinator quarterly network meeting. And then on June 11th is our scoring and reporting webinar, which covers a lot of the basics about all the results coming out and what to do with them, and all kinds of information about our systems that handle results. So that is a good one to attend. And then if you want to dive a little bit deeper into the scoring and reporting world, there's another series in June called the Data Leadership Training Series on our next slide. And that one kind of dives a little bit more deeply into how to actually use assessment data for your local systems and decision making, communication and engagement. And there's also sort of the last session has a panel where folks from LEAs talk about what they do with their data. So a really great series that will be coming later in June that we want to tell you about now. So there's 4 sessions in that data leadership training series on June 16th, 17th, 23rd, and 25th. And all of these trainings you can register for on our upcoming training opportunities page, the same place you downloaded those files from before. And then also we want to give a shout out to the 2026 California Assessment Conference, or CAC, that will be happening on October 27th through the 29th in Riverside. It's a great big conference, and we try to advertise it nice and early because you can also submit proposals to present if you'd like. You can also register to attend at cdecac.org. All right. To mention our educator involvement opportunities. So these are chances to actually get involved in test development processes where educators can give input on test design, accessibility, and implementation. So if you or you know anyone at your districts or schools that might be interested, you can always pass along our Get Involved webpage. This QR code will take you there, or it's also in our resource guide, of course. But for the new year, for 2026-27, opportunities will be posted in a couple of days on May 14th on that educators opportunity portal for the California Science Test, or CAST, the California Alternate Assessments, or CAAs, the CSA, California Spanish Assessment, and then the summative ELPAC and summative alternate ELPAC. So a lot of opportunities for the upcoming year if you would like to get a little bit more involved. And then Smarter Balance is also recruiting educators to apply for the opportunity to participate in ELA and math data review meetings for the Smarter Balanced summative assessments. So you can also register for those. Those are virtual events hosted by Smarter Balanced folks on June 1st to the 2nd for math and June 2nd to 4th for ELA. All right, just a few new and updated resources to mention. And again, all these links will be in that resource guide for you. So there's a few recordings from April's coffee session, as well as a new video about understanding the CAASPP student score reports. So you can find those videos on our website. And then there's a few PDF resources available. The formative assessment tools to support teaching and learning has a nice flyer that you can access and share around, as well as a Smarter Balanced resource called the Interim Informative Assessment Playbook. So those are some new resources available, as well as the 2025-26 CAASPP student data file layout. So we mentioned the data file layout files because you should be preparing to release scores or to receive student scores. And for most LEAs, a big part of that is syncing that up to your student information system. And while they should have access to the latest data file layout, um, they might need those files to set up that connection between the data file becoming available in TOMS and having it automatically flow over to the student information system for whatever vendor you use at your local district. So you might want to be in contact with them, make sure they have all the files they need because those are available on our website. All right, let's get to the good stuff. Student score releases. Uh, so data is coming soon. Results are coming very soon. So unfortunately, we can't be a whole lot more specific at this very moment as far as exactly when they will come out. We've had it listed as mid to late May on our website. But it should be available pretty soon. So keep an eye out. Just keep an eye, and we will send an email to you all. It usually comes the afternoon before um, the scores will be available the next day, like once you get that email. Um, so just keep an eye out on that, where you'll have access to that initial data file and then shortly after you'll have access to the SSRs and scores and SIRS. So that's the initial release for most of the assessments will be all at that time. And then in August is when like all of the results will be done. And here's kind of the full timeline. So May, like I mentioned, are the first releases of Smarter Balance for ELA, Math, and CAST, which are all on that same SSR now, right? And then also SSRs for the summative ELPAC and the summative alternate ELPAC. And then in August will be so any remaining scores that you haven't gotten earlier in the process, they'll all be out by August. So any remaining results for all the Smarter Balanced and the summative ELPAC assessments. And then in September is when the full releases will be available for the California alternate assessments, CAAs for ELA, math, and science, as well as the CSA or Spanish assessment. All right. And then aggregate data. So all of the state's data, all aggregated together on the statewide scale will be available by October 15th, 2026. So you'll get your own scores, obviously, before that, according to those previous timelines. But this October 15th date is when that unified release of the 2025-26 California School Dashboard and statewide assessment data will be released for that kind of complete picture of student performance and areas of need. And that aggregate assessment data, including countywide data, will be available for preview in the beginning of September. So you all should see it early, a little earlier than usual. We've kind of been changing up how that's done and what that exact timeline is recently. But you'll get kind of a sneak peek in September, and then it'll be out publicly by October 15th. All right. And this is also just a reminder to, start using that data early. Well, I know we have some trainings in kind of the June timeframe about using that local assessment data. But a lot of you, have already pathways and processes for using your local data. And this is just a reminder that you get it earlier than you might think sometimes, and a lot of folks, I'm not sure exactly what everybody's process is, but it, trickles in, that information trickles in, and all of a sudden next school year is upon you in August. So this is just a reminder to use that assessment data early. You get a lot of it right off the bat, and in the early summer months in May and June. So make sure that you're using the tools available to you, using the data that's available to you right away, and let us know if there's any, thing that we can do to help with that. But it's just a reminder that you can get started and plan for next year sooner than you might think with that assessment data. And then the next topic related to results that we want to mention is the new reporting achievement level descriptors, or ALDs, for 25-26 for the CAASPP. So there was an email that went out about this, and there's a whole new web page where we've laid out a bunch of information, including, just what the new actual names of each level are, and a bunch of resources to help understand why these changes were made, and how to communicate it to folks. So these are the labels to the 1, 2, 3, 4 scores that folks get. And yeah, here's a nice and easy chart on how to understand this. So the old reporting labels were standard exceeded, met, nearly met, and not met. And so this year, from 4 down to 1. So this year, those will be relabeled as advanced, proficient, developing, and minimal. And we won't go into the whole backstory of exactly why that was changed, but we think that this is going to be hopefully a much clearer picture of what those levels actually mean, as relating to what grade level standards really mean. So if you have any questions about that, you can let us know, but there's a lot of information on the Reporting Achievement Level Descriptors webpage. So there was a link in that email that we sent. There should be a link in your resource guide, and maybe we can even repost that link here if folks want to check it out right now. I'll see if I can grab that real quick. Unless someone on my team has it handy, you can put that in the chat. And then on our next slide, we have just a few notes, reminders about when to notify families of summative assessment results. So there is a guideline for, thank you, Sylvia, for putting that link in the chat for us. So there are guidelines and regulations about how quickly you need to notify families of summative assessment results. So this is a reminder about this timeline. So for CAASPP, you are required to notify families within 20 working days after receipt of the summative assessment results. If the end of your academic school year comes before those 20 days, then the deadline is 20 working days from the beginning of the next instructional school year. And then so same structure for ELPAC, but different amount of days. It's 30 calendar days after, and 30 calendar days, I'll note that difference, after receipt, or 15 working days from the beginning of next instructional school year. And I think I just saw this question come in right after that. If we can go back to that slide, and I think we get this question often. Does posting on the SIS count, or do they have to go out and mail? It's just about notifying families. So as long as they get notified of these results being available to them, and they are made available to them, then that counts. I don't think there's not a hard copy requirement. Yeah, Tracy.
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, please.
So yes, electronically, parents need to be notified that the results are available. The concern is if you are notifying a parent through email or something and there's a bounce back that the parents are not receiving that, then districts must have a process in place to capture that information, and you may need to, as an LEA, print copies and send them to the parent's address. So just as a reminder, you're required to notify parents of the results, and it can be however you want to, as long as you're ensuring that parents are receiving those, and that they can access them. But if it's being done electronically, there has to be some sort of process in place in case parents are no longer or unable to receive that communication. So just remember that, and I think you will be okay. I did have one other question. For the summative results, there is the annual parent notification, which includes summative results, reclassification information, graduation information. It is the legal letter that is required to be sent to parents of their programs and services that they will receive in the coming year. That has to be sent out to parents within the first 30 days, calendar days. But for our SSR results, you can combine them as long as you're doing it within 15 working days. So you kind of have to get all of your letters, everything done in a timely manner, and you can do it together if you receive your results during the summer after your instructional year closes. So just give you some clarification there.
Thank you, Tracy. All right.
And Tyler, I just
Yeah.
want to announce this to the group at large because I'm not aware of this, but someone thought there was a CAST specific webinar happening today in addition to this one. Does that ring a bell for anyone? I know we have a focus group later this afternoon.
Yeah, I don't believe I'm aware of any other training going on.
Okay. So that may be on
Yeah.
another date. You might want to have to go back and check your automated registration response to see the specifics for a CAST webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. Okay. Let's quickly talk about condition codes. So there's a few, just a kind of a reminder about these important condition codes that you might be dealing with right now. So um, the primary things that you need to know are the condition codes for a parent guardian exemption, or a PGE, and a not tested due to medical emergency, or NTE. And these condition codes need to be entered into TOMS at least 2 days prior to your CAASPP windows closing to allow for processing time. And keep in mind that everybody's CAASPP window might be a little bit different and customized based on your academic calendar. So make sure that you're kind of staying on top of those and entering those in before the window closing. And letters from parents and guardians or doctors for the NTE can be submitted in paper or electronic form. And they should include the student name, the current test administration year, and the assessment being exempted in those. And then there's one other condition code that comes up a lot that folks have questions about, and that is the NEL, or newly arrived English learner condition code. And this is really mostly only applicable to the Smarter Balanced for ELA summative assessment, as well as the California alternate assessment for ELA. So this code gets applied by ETS at the end of the statewide testing window, and assessments that are accidentally administered to NELs will not be reset via stairs. So if you're not aware, this is for new new students who are arriving into the country, can be exempted from that ELA test within a certain amount of days. So we will automatically apply it to the Smarter Balanced for ELA or CAA for ELA that was not started, or if it was started, but they didn't complete enough of the assessment to count as a full attempt. It'll get applied to those students automatically. And then, I don't know, Moses, do you have anything else to say about that before we jump into your test security
Yeah, no,
topics?
Tyler, thank you. I was going to jump in on test security, but yeah, no, these condition codes, please, as we're winding down, especially, and I'll mention that in just a minute again, such an important part to attend to as soon as you possibly can. But as we'll see in just a few minutes, again, absolutely not to be left aside until the last minute, if at all possible. But yeah, no,
Thanks.
thank
Yep.
you.
Well, yeah, then we'll keep an eye out for any questions about any of these things, but we will jump into test security. So take it away.
Thank you, Tyler. And before we move right into it, let's take a second. I know we've presented quite a bit of information all strung together. Take a breather, take a second. I want to offer you again the opportunity. If you haven't done so, if you have not been one of the lucky ones to put a question in the Q&A, take this time as you breathe, as you process all the wonderful information you've already received. Take a look at the Q&A. There are some really valuable questions that some of your colleagues have asked that might not have passed by your mind, but as you read through them, the answered ones also, incredibly valuable information that if one person is going through it, it's almost certain that it's a topic that will be intriguing to you. So take a minute to think through some of what we've already shared with you, to think if it triggers any question for follow-up that you might have, and to also, as we transition into this next topic, see if there's anything interesting and intriguing to you of the questions that your colleagues have asked. As you're doing that, thank you guys so much. Boy, believe it or not, we're almost through with this admin. It's mid-May. You've done an incredible job. An incredible job of supporting your students and teachers all year long, of getting everything ready and in place for this opportunity for your students to show how much they've worked, how hard they have invested their time into preparing for this. And for you who are there on the front lines supporting our teachers, our administrators, and most importantly, supporting our students, we thank you. Absolutely nothing more important for us to say to you today than thank you for everything that you have done for your students one more time this year. For you first-year coordinators, I want to give you a huge piece of advice that might sound like the worst time in the world to tell you this, but it isn't. Please don't quit. Come back next year again. I promise you, I give you my word, you first-year coordinators. Yes, I promise you, first-year coordinators, whatever has happened, however this year has felt, do not quit, because next year will be the first year that you actually feel like if you are accomplishing something positive in this new leadership role, and then you're going to know why somebody had the presence of mind of asking you to step into this leadership role at your district. This year, boy, you've learned so much. I beg you, please come back, join us again next year. You will see how much you will feel as if your leadership role can really start to make an impact if you stick with us and come back next year. So with that said, let's wrap up these last 6 weeks of testing with some really key important reminders around test security. And on both slides, if you've already noticed and looked at the next slide, there's a purpose behind why on both slides we start with this one bullet. And I know that we've talked about it all year long, from our interim assessment time, when, by the way, it is the wisest time to start to get these practices and policies into place from the beginning of the year around this important first bullet. Because the more all year long that you and your students and teachers attend to your practices and policies around test security, and especially around this issue of unauthorized electronic devices, the sooner you start working that into your collective culture at your school sites, the less we're going to have to address this during summative assessments. But we still have a few weeks left of ELPAC. We still have a few weeks left of CAASPP. And I cannot tell you how critically important it is for us to continue to attend, especially as it relates to, yes, unauthorized electronic devices, but then I also need to throw in what we know we're dealing with so much and so prevalently of third-party platforms, social media, and AI platforms. Please, let's make sure that we attend to not only you at the LEA, but the guidance that we at the LEAs need to provide all the way down to our site coordinators and our administrators and test examiners. So please, the first bullet under the sub bullet, boy, how important it is for us all to have strict and articulated cell phone policies. As it relates to CAASPP, and here it also relates, and we have been saying it and sharing it throughout the entirety of the year around ELPAC also, and you'll see it again, the importance of the uniformity and the guidance that we as test examiners and test administrators have, guided by the scripts or the DFAs, as you want to call them, and the importance that our site coordinators and test examiners and test administrators know that they are not optional, but they are what should guide the sessions that we have for our students to take these tests. Again, ELPAC, we're still underway with our summative ELPAC, and even further down with the initial ELPAC that continues. Still time for us to make sure that we are reminding our sites about the importance. And then I must throw in, take a second, or I make that last statement about it as you read it, something so critical. And if anybody wants to ask in the Q&A, how do I know where my sites are with their CAA for science? Okay, here is the time for me to make the most important plug I always make every single time. Is there anybody that doesn't know intimately your success agent yet? If there is anybody, you see that last bullet, if you're not sure how to figure out where you are with your CAA for science participation, right now, give a call or in a couple of minutes to your success agent. Ask them for help with all of these details. They are your lifeline to support and success, even at this point in the year where we are now starting to wind things down. Our CAA for science. And again, don't forget, this was back way in September that we started to let you know about this. And that the window opened back then. And the idea was and is, as the students are receiving instruction, they are receiving that part of the assessment as connected to when they receive that instruction as possible. So please, if you haven't recently pulled your completion status report, to especially look to see where your sites are with the CAA for science, this is a wonderful time to do it. And then a few detailed reminders about ELPAC and test security. Again, as I mentioned, the first bullet, it relates to all of the testing that we do. One more time, from the very beginning of the year, when you're starting to use the interim assessments for both CAASPP and ELPAC, in all of the amazing ways that your teachers and students are using the interim assessment, this test security aspect needs to be prominent in the work that your sites are doing with all of our assessments. Again, that is such an important topic for us to have forefront in our work all year long. And again, like I said about CAASPP, the DFAs, such a critical other important detail of what we are doing to help our students to have the very best experience with their testing. And then as it relates to ELPAC, let me finish with this important detail that we're working with day to day in the last few weeks, especially some of you have been receiving reminders, very detailed reminders. I do want to say this. You have attended to this really well in catching up and making sure that we are attending to every single student that was given the speaking domain. We have entered their scores. Because remember, just because you gave them the speaking domain and you have their scores written down somewhere, that's not it. And actually, the most critical part that we need to make sure that we are attending to is that second part. That the scores that we gathered when we gave them that speaking test, we have made sure that we have entered them into the DEI. So please continue to do the amazing work that you are doing in all of these respects. Reach out, and reach out again to your success agent for support with any of these details that we've shared with you. And we will wrap up this year of testing with incredible success for our students to be able to be so proud of the work they have. Any questions you might have right now, the remainder of this time, or again to your success agents, please know we are here to walk through step by step this journey with you. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Moses. All right, well, we will continue on here with our section about stairs, and I'll hand it over to Colton today to walk us through these topics.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Colton Shaner. I'll be going over the stairs, tips, and topics today. First bulletin we have is in regards to technical issues for grace period extensions. You do not want to file stairs cases for this technical issues grace period extension after the assessment has been submitted. It will be rejected by the system because it only applies to paused assessments. If an act beyond the control of the test examiner or administrator does happen, we highly recommend just pausing the assessment and then calling Caltech. Then we could kind of move forward from there with what steps to take. In regards to personally identifiable information, please do not enter any student information such as this other than SSIDs on the stairs case. Please don't put it in the description of issue, the plan of action, or within the notes. Any incorrectly submitted stairs case may result in a rejection because of this as well. And then kind of with the topic of just between staying in touch with stairs, please be sure to check your stairs notes for any pending cases you do have, especially swap cases. Oftentimes I'll or somebody on the stairs team will leave notes just for communication. And then for the end of the window, we want to allow ample processing time. Stairs cases entered towards the end of the window risk not being processed. If you do have pending stairs cases and you know your admin window is coming up and is very close to ending, please contact your success agent and we'll kind of see if we could get that moved along and processed. Then for the next one, in regards to invalidation appeals, the CDE will rely on LEA's judgments for these cases. If you are unsure, please, again, contact your success agent to see if it does require a stairs case. Once the stairs case is invalidated, the test is, we can't go back. Invalidated assessments, they can't be retaken and they can't be continued. Students can take other assessments other than that specific invalidated assessment. But once the stairs is submitted, CDE will see the submission as the validity already being undermined and will most likely approve the case. And in any instance with content is uploaded on the internet, including artificial intelligence, should always be reported back to Caltech as well. Thank you very much. I believe that is, yeah.
Thank you, Colton. Appreciate a lot of good info there. And before I hand it over to Sylvia for our call drivers, I'll just reiterate to check the question and answer feature, the Q&A feature in Zoom. There's a ton of questions getting answered like a lot as we go by our colleagues. Thank you, by the way, to all the CDE folks and other ETS folks who are answering questions, and our success agents as well who are multitasking here on the line. So go ahead and as you can check through the Q&A for you should be able to see answered questions and open questions on there. But yeah, for now, I will hand it over to Sylvia to talk through some things that are driving calls.
And Tyler, real quick
Yeah.
before Sylvia goes, I just want to let folks know if you hear us referring to RAN or the Regional Assessment Network and you're not familiar with what that is, because I know somebody had asked about a resource that's produced by RAN. I'm going to post a link in the chat that lists all your different folks that are representatives for those particular regions. And you're always welcome to reach out to that person to see if you can get involved in that regional assessment network. A lot of those folks put out great resources and are willing to share. So it's another resource for all of you. So I'll post that in the chat.
Thank you, Christine. All right, have we jumped ahead? Anybody else want to jump ahead of Sylvia before she talks?
I'm okay with it.
Just get it. Go for it, Sylvia.
All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to take a quick moment and tell everyone to let's breathe, let's take a deep breath, and let's let it all out because round of applause, you've done it. We're in that home stretch and we feel your anxiety. We feel that you guys are rushing and you're trying to get things done. And we know how much you are trying to support your students and your staff. So I just, as one of the success agents, I want to start by saying thank you. We see you. We are there with you. And you keep doing what you're doing. Keep showing up. Just like Moses said, I'm a big believer about you got to learn to ride that bike before we sign up for that first marathon. So keep riding that bike to you brand new coordinators and come back because we want to see you next year. All right. And so these are your call drivers for May of 2026 as we're getting to close out the year here soon. The very first one I want to touch on is kind of what Colton was talking about during the stairs phase of this meeting. PII, personally identifiable information. What this means is when you are reaching out to us to inquire about a testing issue or a student enrollment, anything to do with your student, the SSID number is sufficient for us. And so just make sure that you never attach a student name to that. We hate to have to send you away, but we will send you away because we want to make sure that we are not putting anything in there that ties us to a student. So SSID number is keeping it safe, but still allowing all parties to be able to troubleshoot and find the information that we need to find to get you going and no more halts on that. With that being said, the other big important thing that we are seeing as your success agent team is whenever you mostly the emails. If you email into your region box or even when you phone in or even chat in, it's really important that if you're inquiring why this or why that or why are we not seeing this or just anything that you're noticing that's causing a red flag for you or just causing a pain point for you in testing your students, make sure that you do include as much detail as possible in those inquiries. The reason that we ask for that is because it does allow us to immediately begin to troubleshoot and provide you guidance to move forward as soon as possible without having to request over multiple email replies the additional information. So the more detail that you can provide, the better. Just make sure not to include any student names. Okay. And then our second bullet point here, you want to note that following about demographic corrections. The first note is going to be correcting student demographics does take time when you reset a test. And so those are going to be your reset stairs appeals or your restore appeals. So basically what happens is these ones, um, when you submit that stairs case, you got to remember it's a little bit of a time lapse. So the first part is you're submitting your appeal, reset, or restore within TOMS. You're allowing the stairs team to process those cases. And once they're completed and hopefully approved, then at that time, that's going to trigger in the back end for those demographic things to go ahead and update within TOMS and allow you to move forward. And then as far as restoring assessments, it is very, very important that you get your restore request into your success agent team. We prefer over email. You want to make sure that this is completed prior to the close of the testing window. And as Colton iterated in the last session, please, please, please get them in. If you wait till the last day, it's very likely that we may not get to it. If you're cutting it close to your window, after you submit it, reach out to your success agent and let them know, hey, I just submitted this. I know I'm a few days out of that window closing. That way we can maybe ping that team and let them know that, hey, maybe this needs to go ahead and have priority over others that are still going to be open a little bit longer. Okay, so get those SSIDs into us, no student names, include as much detail as you can, and give yourself time so that you don't miss out on that testing window for your students. Thank you guys. I'm out.
Thank you, Sylvia. Really appreciate that. So much going on right now. I appreciate the reminders to breathe. I sometimes talk too much or too quickly. So, all right, let's do a few reminders here at the end. Just a couple things. Hopefully, these just hit you all right where you need them, just in case you need any of these reminders. So, paper pencil test scores. Make sure that you are entering test scores into the DEI before your selected testing window ends. That's a big one. And DEI scores in general, with the ELPAC domains that require them, make sure that you're paying attention to that. Scratch paper, make sure you're destroying all scratch paper and graph paper according to your school's policy, and don't just dispose of them in the normal trash can. For a little reminder about the CSA, make sure that you're administering that throughout the entire CAASPP testing window. It's not restricted to the school's testing window. So I think that has been included in the past just to make sure that folks have enough time for that and really utilize all the time available to you. And another note about recommending to not start segment 3B of the CSA unless there's sufficient time to complete that last reading and writing constructed response. So we got a lot of feedback about this last year, that the pause rules for the constructed response item in the CSA, which is relatively new, the pause rules are different from like the ELA performance task, for instance, right? If students start working on that CSA constructed response item, and then pause for more than 20 minutes, they're going to be pushed past it and not be able to go back and add to that response. So they're in that segment. Don't start it unless you're sure that the student will have enough time to actually finish it all the way. And if they pause, it can only be for less than 20 minutes, and go back into it. So a good reminder there. I think we have a few. Yeah, go for it.
Piggyback on the first before you move on from this slide. No, the back.
Yeah, paper pencil test.
No, the DEI.
Oh.
The DEI.
Yeah, DEI.
Listen to the DEI. A couple of, and please again, as we've suggested now and encouraged you now a few different times about the timeliness of entering the DEI for so many reasons and so many things that can go wrong. Let me just point out a couple of scenarios. You see that what Tyler's indicated there on that bullet. Please be mindful of this. Different schools, different districts are going to be closing at different times. And here's the thing, if your CalPADS person happens to unenroll the students because it's coming to the close of your schools or LEAs year, and they unenroll students, and you haven't entered some of those DEIs, okay, be very careful with that, because that's an example of why it is so advised from day one of ELPAC that the DEI scores be entered as soon as possible after the test has been given, and that they don't sit there waiting for you to have time or what have you. That's a really important type of scenario where you really don't want to come across that, not having realized that your schools or your LEA's calendar is coming to a close. So
Yeah.
please heed that warning and know that there are a lot of different little scenarios that can creep up on you and make that DEI entry a little bit of a difficult situation to work out.
Yeah. And yeah, I think we even have so this slide is CAASPP reminders, which is why it mentions paper pencil tests into the DI, but our next slide, if we change to it, has those reminders specifically about the DEI for ELPAC as well, right? And also, just completing summative ELPAC K through 2 answer books for scoring by June 12th. But yeah, your local school schedule and stuff, might change exactly when you're aiming to send things in. So make sure you're really paying attention to that. We have a reminder about entering your speaking scores into the DEI before the close of the summative LPAC window, because scores cannot be entered after that window closes. And then also a note about initial LPAC for the K through 2 supplemental order window is open. So, just a note about ordering and preparing for materials next year, and that materials for the 25-26 test administration of the initial LPAC can be used for 2026-27 administration of the initial LPAC. And then just another reminder for LPAC on the LPAC side too, just to securely destroy your scratch paper. And then I think we have one more, which is, that reclassification process. So make sure that you are, really considering that reclassification process using 24-25 summative scores, because that needs to be completed by May 31st of this year. And it is recommended that reclassified students' ELAS status, or the English language acquisition status, their records need to be updated to classified fluent English proficient in CalPads by May 22nd, which allows an additional week of processing in CalPads to make sure that they're not included in your LPAC student eligibility report. So just make sure you're on top of that as well. All right, a lot of great reminders, a lot of stuff going on here. So we're gonna look through some of the questions that we have open or that we have had answered. I know a lot of stuff, like I mentioned, getting answered in the background.
Hey,
So thank
Tyler,
you.
I wanted to go
Yes.
back to one of your reminders about the scratch paper. I find it very helpful to coordinators to share with their test examiners. We get a lot of inquiries here with the success agents about the scratch paper, about if the student didn't finish testing, do they have to throw it away or can we keep it? Technically, yes. You want to, if they're going to be testing over multiple sessions, you can hold on to that, securely store it, and at the end of them completing that test and submitting it into the system, that's when you want to go ahead and securely destroy it. But yes, they can use it over multiple sessions while they're completing that test.
Thank you, Sylvia. All right. And yeah, I know we got a few uh, just questions about how folks use the different notification systems for their SISs for SSRs. There was a question specifically about Aries. I see Eric posted some info and his contact information. Sorry, Eric, to out you there, but if anybody, I know Eric knows a lot about using Aries. So that is a resource. If you have any questions about SIS features, just keep in mind, for the most part, if it's technical help with your SIS, Our success agents usually can't answer those questions very well because there's a variety of systems and vendors that folks in California use. So you should be, for the most part, reaching out to your vendor directly. But if it's something on the Tom side, or something testing related, of course, you can reach out to your success agents. Or you can reach out to myself, and we can put you in touch if it's an issue of, um, trying to get in touch with other coordinators at districts for advice on how to handle things. We might be able to put you in touch with someone. And that actually reminds me of a great resource that we don't mention all the time. But it's the Coordinator How To Hub. So this is a web page that I'm going to put in the chat right now. How to Hub. That some folks over at SCOE worked on this project to record a bunch of videos from different coordinators at different types of districts, to kind of share their experiences. And I know that if you go on that page down to the spring or the late spring section, there's a bunch of videos about the monitoring completion as well as reporting stuff. There's some just like resources that links to resources that we've made, but also these vignette videos of the coordinators talking about how they handle it at their different districts. So might be worth checking out if that's the kind of info you're looking for. All right. So looking through our questions to see if there's anything else we need to cover before signing off here. And if anybody has one, I'm sorry, I'm trying to wade through a bunch of information here. And like I said, a lot of already answered questions. Um,
And a lot of the
yeah,
questions there are questions to other coordinators and asking for, some help in how you do things at a local level, like someone refusing to come to school. Do you have any suggestions of how to get them to come in for testing, things like that? So feel free to share with each other if you have any advice. Um, and then we do have a question to go back to the ELPAC one slide.
the reminder slide, maybe, just like a couple slides
Maybe.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, reminders about submitting materials and DEI scores. Good thing to make sure you have. And just in general, yeah, make sure that right now you are prepping for your score releases. Like I said, that I know we got a few questions throughout of people. We covered it pretty much at the top of the session about when the data files will be available and the first batch of scores will be released. And we don't have an exact date for you yet, but it is posted on our website as mid-May. So any day now, that will start to be available for you all, and we will send out an email to let you know. I think that is really the biggest thing that we got questions about. And then, yeah, working with make sure you're just working with your SIS vendors if you're relying on that to send out scores or notifications, and that you are in touch with those folks as well.
Hey, Tyler, can I throw in another
Please
important
do.
message? I'm getting some side notes from our success agent team.
Yes.
Just important to you coordinators that support the Summit of ELPAC, make sure your DEI is submitted before May 31st. End of day looks like about 5 p.m. We just want to make sure that all these students are accounted for. So go through your completion reports. You can use the completion status system, but make sure that the DEI is completed before the close of that window. It will no longer be available after that.
Yeah, sounds good. And I saw,
Can I just add on to that first, Sylvia? Just a
yes.
reminder, there were 500 students last year that did not get scores. Some of them, I think there was about 50 of them or so that actually were inactive, but the other 450, it was just due to districts not entering those scores in a timely manner. So those students would have had a lower score and may not have been eligible for reclassification. So just a reminder, this is critical. And I do have to say, you guys are doing a fantastic job with getting these scores in. I know that we've already halved the number of DEI entries, and you guys are still testing. So good job. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know it's 3 o'clock, but I just saw one last quick question that I want to say out loud, which was a question about, can students keep scratch paper for math on the CAT test through multiple sessions? So yeah, it's my understanding, and Devin answered in the Q&A here, that scratch paper should be destroyed after each CAT session. That's computer adaptive test. So scratch paper retained between sessions is a cause for a stairs case and potentially invalidated result. So just wanted to get that answer read aloud. I know there's a few other little questions. If we did not get to you, or if you have any other questions, please reach out to your success agent. They are busy, but they are there still, willing to help. They are ready and able to help everybody get through this busy stretch. And hopefully you are on the way downhill. Hopefully you're almost there, if not already done. So we know that you all are working really hard and appreciate your time to be here today. So yeah, thank you everybody. We will still be here in June. So we will see you for the June coffee session, as well as probably for some of those other trainings that we mentioned. And we hope everybody has a smooth end to your school year. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye bye, y'all.